Hello everybody, Oliver G here from the Eiffel Tower podcast, brought to you by My Private Paris. More on them in a second, but this episode is all about gin. You're going to hear the voice of Charlotte Buisson-Delcauve, who is one of the two women running the new distillery called the Distillerie de l'Arbre Sec. And I went and did one of their gin making classes, and I really and truly thought it was fantastic, and I want to feature them on this show. So I was going to say, let me introduce you to Charlotte, but if you were looking carefully, before this episode came out, I released a walking video, a walk show with Charlotte, walking through the first and second arrondissement of Paris from her distillery, and then revealing 5, 6, 7 hidden gems in Paris that are all right next to each other. So the YouTube link will be in the show description. If you want to see what this beautiful distillery looks like, that's your opportunity. Otherwise, I highly recommend you book one of their fun gin making classes. Now, before we get into the episode, as I said, this show is sponsored by My Private Paris. You'll hear from Marie Segura at the end of the episode. Quite fittingly, she's talking about one of the covered passages that she really loves. I'm not going to say which one it is, but if you've watched the YouTube video of me and Charlotte, you'll see us go through 2 covered passages. Neither of them are the ones that Marie will be recommending at the end of the episode. So hang around to hear her, and if you're going to book a tour of Paris or beyond, do it with My Private Paris. One more thing. Monday, December 9th will be the Eiffel Tower's public Christmas party, and Friday, December 13th will be the Eiffel Tower's members-only Christmas party, and it will be held at this very distillery. You can't just rock up, though. You need to buy a ticket because drinks will be included. Info in the show notes below. I hope to see you there. Now, let's get into the episode, which we recorded inside the distillery in the first arrondissement of Paris. Here we go. Charlotte, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really great. I'm going to try pronouncing your last name before anything. Buisson-Delcauve.
Yeah, that's good enough.
Okay, go on. You do it one more time.
Buisson-Delcauve.
Buisson.
Yes.
Okay, where's that name from?
Buisson means bush in French. That's a very French name, and the other name is Polish from my grandfather.
Huh. Okay, got it. Okay, and then before we even get into the distillery, l'arbre sec. What is that? What's that?
So l'arbre sec means the dry tree. We found that name very poetic when we first named the distillery. It's very common for a distillery to name it after the place where it's from, and it's on Rue de l'Arbre Sec, right? But we found out later, l'Arbre Sec, the dried tree, is actually a reference to the gallows that were there in the Middle Ages. So that street was actually not the best, reputation, and that's where people were hanged, unfortunately.
That took a really different turn because I thought you were going to say dry tree is an ingredient in gin, and it was the perfect name. So not at all.
No, unfortunately, that's kind of what we hoped for when we named it. We found it, poetic. The dry tree is kind of mysterious. It took a very dark turn, and that's why we rewrote the story by doing a logo that's referencing that story, but that's also putting a positive spin on it. So,
you know what that makes me think as well? Like, French is a beautiful language. Everybody knows that. But sometimes I wonder, is it just because it sounds beautiful? Because Rue de l'Arbre Sec sounds nice, but Dry Tree Street doesn't really sound... who cares, right? Anyhow, that's the language lesson out of the way. Let's talk gin for a little bit. Yeah. We're sitting in a very stunning building, and I think we should talk about... the interior here. It's stunning. It's a gin distillery with a great twist, and I want to talk about it. I want to talk about what you guys do here. But first, for the people who are listening and can't see what this looks like or haven't seen pictures yet, it's clearly there's an expert hand behind all this. There's an architect involved. What's the story here?
Yeah. I wish we did that ourselves, but we are 3 partners in the distillery. Charlotte, another Charlotte, myself, and Nicolas Paradis and his wife, Elodie. She's an interior designer, and so she's the beautiful mind behind this beautiful setting.
And it's like I'm going to try and describe it. You've got this these deep greens and deep blues. Sort of, how do you describe this wall? Like
So it's a wall with like prints of fresh botanicals, fresh plants that were literally molded, printed on the wall as it was being made.
Okay, so I mean, even because it's quite dim lighting in here as well, so you have to look quite closely to see. So that's real. What is it, like juniper trees and stuff like that? So
that's what we wanted at the beginning. It was hard to have actual like juniper trees because they are mainly in the wild. So to bring them back here for the making of this took about 2 to 3 weeks almost to make just that wall. So no, we took seasonal fresh plants, but the idea was to have like a herbal theme, you know. Like.
And then it works really well. And then on top of it, what we haven't mentioned is this rich copper colored, I guess it is copper?
Yeah, absolutely.
Copper, firstly, piping as decorative lights around the wall. The small distillery units in copper, of which we're going to talk about in a second, but there's like 20 of them, and then the huge Jules Verne style distillery machine, which looks like some kind of futuristic octopus from the past. Is that a fair description? Everyone at home is like, I can't picture this place at all. And then there's the room behind where you're sitting now with all the different botanicals for making your own gin. You guys already have a winner with the venue. I love the venue. But what you do here, I really like. So I want to talk about what you do, and then I want to talk about Parisians and gin in general, because I thought this was a wine country. You guys are breaking some kind of rules here. Maybe we start with that.
Absolutely.
Gin, I've talked about gin on the show before. Is it changing a lot? Is this taking over the city? Or, I mean...
I think it's taking over the world, to be honest.
Here we go.
I think we're... Often French people are a little bit set in their ways. I'm sure you've noticed that living here. But so we're a little bit behind everyone else. But I think everywhere else, gin is already taken over. And it's starting here in France. And I think it's really exciting.
Do you think that, you say French people are set in their ways. Do you think it's young people coming in and making changes? Are like older people adapting to it? Or?
I think now it's a little bit of everyone. I mean, the people we get here at the distillery, we have, all ages, all backgrounds. It's quite exciting, but it probably started with younger people, yeah.
But is wine on the way out? I remember about 10 years ago, beer was coming in. So I remember when I used to work as a journalist here, I remember a story about beer is taking over, and that seemed to be a big thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where are we at? Hang on. What are young people drinking in?
Well, I'm not young. I don't know.
I'm not young either. But you surely know some young people.
No, I don't know. It's just, about France being traditional. I used to work in wine. I've worked in wine for 15 years. And I think for a lot of people, France is just wine. And we were lacking, I think, craft drinks in general. And just like beer did a big entrance a few years back, I think now craft spirits are also on the menu in France. And wine is still there, sure. Wine will probably always be there, but we're just making the drink culture richer, I think.
I think that's really, personally, I think it's really exciting in a city like Paris. I think there's a risk of resting on the famous things, because there are cities and there are countries around the world that really rely on these traditional things, and then they get really dated, and then you go and visit them and it feels like you're going to the old town, and it doesn't feel, the energy is gone. And I love that in Paris that there are these especially young people who are taking an idea and really running with it. I love that. I like gin anyway, but I love that there are also the idea of making your own gin. I think is such a good idea. So I want to talk about that a little bit. I came here for a gin making session. What do you call them? Session classes?
Yeah, workshop.
Workshop. And I thought it was great. And I must have said to you, in all honesty, throughout the night, maybe 3 or 4 times. Yeah. What did I say?
That you loved it?
I did. And that's sincere. I was like, Shah, this is such a good idea. I love this idea because, and I'll let you explain it, but my version of it is you come in here, you do the workshop learning thing about how gin is made, and then you sit at your own little distillery unit and you pick out your own botanicals. So you pick out dried apple or whatever from a wall of 200 things or whatever, and then you make a bottle of gin, you put your own label on it, and you go home with it. I think that's such a fantastic, because like with wine, you can't do that.
Yeah, not really.
How long would it take to make a bottle of wine and take it home?
Would you really make it? It would take like a year.
Exactly,
at least.
And the equivalent is probably I don't know if they still do it, but getting bare feet and treading on the grapes.
Yeah.
Like that's right.
Yeah, there are. In all honesty, there are classes, and there's one next door that you can make your own blend of wine. So it's like whiskey, or you find a way to make it a workshop somehow. But I have to say, it's less hands-on than making your own gin, and I agree with that.
So you're onto something here. I love it. I hope people come and do it. But for people who don't know anything about gin, can you do the 30-second to 1 minute definition of what gin is and how you make it and the rules?
Sure, yeah. So gin is a spirit. So it's in the hard liquor category. One of the rules is actually it needs to be minimum 37.5 ABV.
What's ABV?
So alcohol content, it's the percent of alcohol per volume. This is the rule for Europe. Depending on where you are in the world, this rule can vary a little bit. But there are very little rules to make gin. It's very basic rules. The first one is you need to use a neutral spirit, which is kind of I often refer as the blank canvas. For us, it's just the base spirit that has not really taste or texture, and then we need to make taste like different botanicals. And so the second rule is that you need to use juniper berries, which is the main botanical, and it needs.
What is with this juniper thing? Is this like who makes that rule?
Oh well, it's a rule that came with the history of the product.
But if because I was thinking about this on the night, but I didn't want to interrupt everybody.
Sure.
If you and me started making a gin right now, but we didn't put juniper in it, would it still taste like gin? I mean, or does that really?
No.
Really?
It would taste. It might be great. It might be a great aromatic perfumed spirit with plants in it, and you can do that. And people make that, and a lot of the the famous plant liquors like Chartreuse or things like that are basically this with sugar added and other infusions past distillation. But the juniper taste is the gin taste, and that's why the rule says you need to use it, and it needs to be the predominant taste.
Who is the rule maker? when you said this on the night, I was like, who's Mr. or Mrs. G?
Every product has a rule. For us, it's mainly the customs in France that take that rule, but it's a European Union rule that applies to all countries.
To use the word gin.
To use the word
so it's like
gin.
Champagne has to come from
Exactly.
Champagne. Okay.
It's the same idea. When you put the name of something on the label, it entails some rules.
Mm-hmm. And then I loved the idea of getting the bottle that you get to take home at the end of the night. That same night I met up with some friends, I told them what I'd done, and I said, you get the bottle. And I told them, I'm like, we're going to have a gin night at my house because I bought one of your signature bottles as well. And I want to do a blind taste test with them to see if they could taste my gin, which I called Juniper Dream, which I thought was a really good name, by the way.
Very nice.
And then I wanted to do this blind taste test. I was like, we've got to wait 3 weeks for the water to mix with the alcohol. And then a week later, I messaged my friends and said, let's have the gin night. And one of them said, we can't. We have to wait 3 weeks, as you said. So how strict is that rule?
They're very disciplined, your friends.
Yeah, I know, I couldn't believe it. But is that can you drink it before?
Yeah, it's not dangerous or anything. You can drink it whenever you like, but the aromas will keep on evolving during that time. So it won't be the exact picture of what it will be like eventually, because once the mixing is done, the aromas are stabilized and it doesn't change. Unlike wine, for instance, that keeps on evolving throughout time, gin will stay the same pretty much all its shelf life. So that's why our advice is to wait that long minimum to have the real picture of what it's like.
I got a question about yourself. Where are you from?
I'm from Burgundy.
Okay, so you really are a wine person.
I was born and raised in Beaune.
So it's Beaune. Oh, that's nice there. So you made that's a big jump. Is that like disowned by the people in?
Yeah.
When you go back to Burgundy, are they like, there's Charlotte?
No, now it's good. But the like 6 years ago when I told my family, I'm stopping my career in wine and starting my own craft distillery of gin in Paris, they looked at me like it was really mental.
Is that true? Yeah. Because I know in Beaune or in anywhere in France, there is a lot of people don't care so much about Paris, right?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's the big city, it's the capital. It feels like we're a little bit in a bubble, which it kind of is true. There is a difference. There is a gap.
So you were like, I'm going to be in the big city and forgetting about wine too. It's just like the worst thing you could say. So
I already lived in Paris at that point. I've been living in Paris for 13 years, almost 14. So I was already Parisians in their eyes, but dropping the wine career after 10 years at that point and starting with gin of all spirits, which back then was still not that popular. It felt, I think, very odd.
I mean, fair enough. I think it's a great... I love when the city is changing, so congratulations. But I know that you do these classes and they're popular for French people.
Yeah.
Do you have... And wasn't it... What was the story? Was one of my listeners that came in and said that?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a group, I think it was of Americans, and they came by the distillery. I think they came randomly. They saw us at the end of the courtyard, and they walked in and they tasted the gin and they loved it. And they told me about your podcast, and they said, you should definitely reach out to Oliver because he's great and he loves these kind of places.
They might be listening right now.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. But what I was leading to was that you do these for a lot of French people, but you do them for... How do you work that out? Do you do different nights for, or is
Absolutely, yeah. We have different slots in the week for French workshops and English workshops.
And you speak suspiciously good English. What's the deal here?
I did study languages before I studied wine, and I traveled a lot. I lived in the UK, in New Zealand, and in California.
Cool. Okay. I want to finish on this before we maybe go out for a walk if the rain stops. Right. Shout out to everybody to check out YouTube for a video. But in terms of making the ultimate gin, someone who comes in here and they're shy and they maybe don't feel like they got the greatest taste buds, is there a hack for the ingredients that will make for a good gin?
Wow, that's a tough question. No, because it's so subjective. And that's what we really, encourage with the workshop is to let your creativity go. So we give you the base ingredients. So we're sure that it's gin and it's going to taste like gin. Juniper, exactly. But the rest is up to you. And what's a good gin and a bad gin, that's such a subjective point of view anyways, just like for anything that you taste, like food or wine or but we can definitely guide people and help them out.
And I don't think it's giving the game away at all, but you have sort of guidelines. If you want to make a spicy one or a fruity one, these sort of ingredients work well. And just to paint the picture for people, you go into these jars, you get a spoon, you put... can you list off some of the spices just quickly?
Sure. I mean, we have 4 families of aromas. We have floral, fruity, spicy, and herbal. And we recommend to, first go with what you like, of course, but also, mix and match and go pick in different categories. But also be careful of, the ones that can have a bit of an overpowering effect.
Ginger or something, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. A lot of the spices tend to be quite strong. Pepper, for instance.
Well, that's the secret. You were probably wondering the secret ingredient for Juniper Dream. It's pepper.
Absolutely.
It's pepper. It's
well
fruity with a bit of pepper, like a surprise amount of pepper. 15 tablespoons of pepper. No, but I also like the idea that if people like the gin, that they... it sounds like I'm doing one big advert here. I guess I am. I just really enjoyed it. So this is a legit... I like the idea that if you... like the gin that you come home with, you send in the ingredient sheet of what you did and you guys will make more. Is that how it works?
Yeah, absolutely. We give you a little sheet and you can trace your recipe. You can write everything down, and that way we can remake your gin if the bottle's really good. And we actually get a lot of orders from people that loved their bottles and want to do it again.
I love it. And I have a feeling you'll be meeting some more Eiffel Tower listeners in the near future. I want to finish on the neighborhood. Yes. You're in the first arrondissement here, but you're right on the edge of the second one, I think. Mm-hmm. What's that like working in central Paris? Because I think for people who don't know Paris that well, central Paris, you imagine it's pretty busy, a bit crazy. Does it feel like a little village community here, or?
Yes, I think like a lot of neighborhoods in Paris, this is definitely the case here. And I've been really lucky to work most of the time I've been in Paris. I've been in the first arrondissement, and it's a little village, and lots of little gems, hidden spots, lots of history as well. It's a beautiful neighborhood.
I wouldn't want to give anything away for a beautiful walk around the neighborhood, but it's the kind of neighborhood where an 800-year-old city wall can be discovered just around the corner from an Emily in Paris filming location. That's how I describe the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's so many different little things.
And it's all tied together with a nice gin distillery right here, down the beautiful courtyard and off the streets. This is La Distillerie de l'Arbre Sec. You've been Charlotte Buisson d'Alcove.
Very well.
And thanks so much for telling us about your story. I appreciate it a lot.
Thank you so much, Oliver.
Marie Segura, welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
Now, I know for a fact that when it comes to the covered passages of Paris, you love Galerie Vivienne.
Yes. You know me very well, Oliver.
I think it's my favorite as well.
Yeah, but it's a very, it's beautiful. It was restored the last year, so it's plenty of mosaics and fashion, so everything is to be loved in the gallery.
It's almost like every angle is beautiful.
It is. And the light also make it perfect. And for Christmas, oh my God, the lights are everywhere.
Right, good idea. I'm going to go there for Christmas.
Miss it.
But what about if you're more of a foodie and it's raining and you want to have some options? You're not going to hang around the Vivienne.
No, Galerie Vivienne is just for a coffee, I would say. There is this nice little salon de thé. But no, if you want to eat something nice in a gallery, I will definitely choose the Panorama. As you said earlier, there's this Harry Potter vibe about it. And it's true, like with all those old sign hanging and... I don't know, it's just so different. And you feel like you're really going back through time. Like you're going into this place where you have those postcards that are from the early 20th century and then the stamps. Like no one is using stamps anymore.
There's not just one stamp shop in there. There's like a handful of them. Is that where to go when you're a stamp collector in Paris as well?
Yeah. There you also have coins. So you can go for stamps, for coins, for postcards. Everything that is kind of like the flea market, but inside Paris.
What I never... understood is like it's only in that passage, that's the one with all the tables and chairs spilling out into it, so you almost have to sort of walk sideways to get there at lunchtime.
Yeah.
How come it's only that one that sort of goes for that?
I think it's just because it's located by the Grand Boulevard, and you know how all the theaters were there and the opera. So at the end, the people, they need to eat, right? So that was the closest to these places. So I'm thinking that, that makes sense. They had a restaurant. There is an Italian place that is fabulous there with beautiful wine. There is also Indian food. It's really a fun passage.
Is there a favorite restaurant that you can recommend?
I do like Questo Vino, for example.
What's it called?
It's Questo Vino.
Okay.
It's an Italian one that is inside. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds really nice. Here's a question about the passages, and I know that you guys do walking tours there. Is it possible to walk all of them? Because there's like 10 of them left?
In Paris, we have about 12, 14 that could be seen, but we do a tour. We do a tour of the passage covered. So if you we start at Palais Royal and we're doing at least 7 and then ending by the Opera. So
what's everyone's favorite generally? What's the favorite one?
I'm sorry, but Galerie Vivienne.
Yeah.
We sell it right. But there is, they have many, like Colbert, that is not very known, Galerie Colbert. I also like that for one restaurant that is held by people that have a handicap. Could be either physical or mental, and it's called Bonjour, the place, and it's in Galerie Colbert, and it's really great also. So you should have a look.
Inside of is it one of the... Okay, there's one of the Champs-Élysées as well?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, yeah. Okay, great tips. And everybody, not only should you go and check out the covered passages of Paris, not just when it's raining, anytime, but you should check out My Private Paris for tours in there or as far as your imagination will take you in Paris and beyond. Marie, thanks for being in the studio.
Thank you.
And thanks to everybody for listening to the Eiffel Tower podcast. I'll be back again next week with another episode.